Hi, I'm Charlie Melcher. I'm the founder of the Future of Storytelling Summit. I'd like to welcome you to today's Hangout. We're very honored to have with us today Yoni Bloch. Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Yoni is one of our popular speakers from this year's summit, a dear friend and the founder and CEO of Interlude. Interlude, for those of you who don't know, is this incredible company that does interactive video that you can choose to watch it in different ways, direct the action, and it works beautifully and seamlessly. So first, let me just welcome people to join the conversation today. So anyone who's following us, feel free to send us questions, text us questions, or do it through Google+. And we're really excited, Yoni, to have you with us. And let's talk a little bit about that amazing technology that you created. So let me start by asking you, tell us the story, right, of how you started this company and how you went from being just a mild-mannered rock star in Israel to becoming a CEO of a tech startup here in the States and sort of a tech rock star.
First of all, thank you. Yeah, so you're now saying it very nicely. I remember the first time we met and I told you I'm a rock star in Israel and you said, oh, that's a funny thing to be. And when I told you that I have 2 gold albums, you said, yeah, but how many is a gold album in Israel? So, yeah, so I'm originally a musician and a singer in Israel, which is a tiny country with that makes a lot of noise. And a lot of Israelis, it's known to have more than one skill set because you got to go to the army, you got to like learn another skill and things like that. And I was always combining, my dad was a nuclear physicist, so I was always combining the internet access and computer access that I had since the 80s with my love and passion for music, and so did my band. And a couple of years ago, we've decided to, we wanted to make an interactive music video for ourselves. We saw nobody did it before the way we thought it should be done, so we decided to take it more seriously and make a real thing out of it. And I feel like what we were able to achieve, the bigger thing is because of our unique mixture between musicians and developers, that what was most important to us and is our biggest achievements in Interlude, in our IP and in everything we do is the seamlessness. So the fact is that it's much harder to achieve a seamless experience, especially in audio today. And for us, and for most people, they don't think it's an important thing. For us, it was important because as a musician, you know that, they say that eyes blink, so you're okay with anything that happens visually, but the ears never blink, so you notice every smallest noise or problem. And we believe that's true, so we had to make sure something that would give an experience to a user that feels like he's really immersed into the interaction and not stop, ask you something, give you a choice. It's more about actually creating an experience that you feel part of. One of the most interesting things we've been doing lately is combining our technology in VR. And in like early demos, you can see what a huge difference it is when you are actually, because one of the biggest problems in VR is that you are a fly on the wall. But as a fly on the wall, you can't fly anywhere because you don't have the interactivity. You actually, if you move on your own without controlling it in a VR experience, it's very weird because it doesn't make sense. And that's why VR also started from games. When you combine the two and create interactivity, the seamless interactivity inside a VR film experience, you get something that is really what we believe, will be the future of storytelling. That's a good name.
Wow.
Future of storytelling. Yeah. I'm writing that down here.
Thank you. Yes, I already own that. Thank you.
Is that trademark?
So it is trademarked.
Yes. Good name. Good name.
So let me ask you a question. So, because I couldn't agree with you more, right? I wasn't expecting we were going to go straight to the VR conversation, but I'm not surprised because so many of the conversations I have these days go straight to VR. But so, in your experience that you're working on now, when you have a interlude seamless transition or the ability to choose a path inside a VR experience. How does the viewer actually control that?
So we're using all kinds of control mechanisms. That's actually the easiest ones. The ones we're now playing with the most are sound recognition, especially when it knows to expect what you're going to say. We put you in a specific scenario where we can expect answers of stop, yes, no, like somebody's torturing somebody in front of you, and you can say stop or let him do it or give your social security number. You know what I mean? And we're creating these experiences where you're actually really part of the story. Another thing that we're taking advantage of is the fact that one of the biggest problems in VR of classic filmmakers in VR is that they created something that the action only happens in one place.
Like a film.
Like a film. And everybody needs to remember VR originally and will also, I think, where it will make its real success in the beginning will be in games, where in a 3D rendered game, like a first-person shooter, people are shooting all over the place, and you control the action, and you need to get rid of the bad guys, and you need to look to the other places. Because we need to solve the seamlessness also, we can't have let's say we decided that this will make you saying, yes, sir, will make a change, but we need the change to happen somewhere else. It makes us as filmmakers look at it as how do we create a story that actually happens around you and is not just the action is in front of you. And we're creating all kind of interactive scenarios, which are really interesting. I'll give you an example. Imagine that you're a child. That's the real fun of VR is the role playing, and is the fact that you can be someone else, not just be somewhere else. So one of the experiences we've created, which is really cool, is that you're in a school, in a classroom, and there's a test, and there's a teacher walking around the class, making sure nobody's copying. Then he's going around, and you have the test that you need to complete, but there's also a kid to the right that is trying to copy from you. And he's like, psst, psst. Now, if you ignore him too much, it makes too much noise, and the teacher kicks both of you out. You've got to balance all the different tensions coming from all different directions, or not. That's like part of the idea. There's no winning or losing scenario. There's just an environment that actually, changes and, makes different impacts depending on what you do.
I love the idea, too, that you are bringing your understanding of seamlessness, right, which is what's so beautiful about Interlude's software is that it really is without a glitch, without skipping a beat, literally. It's so smooth. And you bring that, you're trying to at least now bring that into VR world where actually that idea of seamlessness is a real problem because VR is made by literally stitching together all these different camera angles where there are seams. And so many bad VR, you can turn around and actually see where the stitching's taken place.
The stitching is it's like the Wizard of Oz. Once you see the stitches, it's over, And that's why for us we always said the seamlessness is to make sure that it's perfect. If you feel the stitch and if you hear the stitch and if you see the stitch, it doesn't matter. It's over. You're out of the experience. And look, in VR, it's already true in video. From what I believe. In video, the resolution needs to be higher to create a really immersive experience. There's amazing stuff, and if you've never experienced VR, then it's the best thing in the world. But I'll give you an example. When I was 11 or 12, it was 1993 in Israel. And it's Israel, yes? Okay, so there was an arcade in the center of Tel Aviv that had, for $2.50, a 2.5-minute game of VR. It was the same VR like today, just much slower recognition, but it didn't matter when I was 12 or 13. But you held a controller that would have been a sword or whatever it was. I thought this is the I don't know if you can say, but the shit. Yeah? That's like the most amazing thing in the world. And then it died, like 3D and other things, because the lag was too long. It wasn't good enough. Now, Oculus came in and showed everybody it's actually time to make it like technology is there. Now it's quick enough. But it started by gamers because that's where it's needed. Now, filmmakers are excited about it for the right reasons, but they're moving slower than the gaming industry is moving, which is what I feel.
Yeah, you say it's going to go into gaming, and I wonder about that personally. I think it might be that it's more live action entertainment before gaming, but I do think that what I really agree with you about is that role of agency, that you give some sense of control, not just ability to be present and look around, but actually to have some control over acting in that virtual reality environment, like that sword that you had in the arcade.
Yeah.
Uh,
Control.
there does need some control.
Currently, VR's control is only a 360 video, and the experience is way better than the previous 360 that I used my mouse to move, but it's still a 360 video. My location is set. I will always be on you've decided where I'm at. You've decided where I'm looking at it from, and it's okay, but it's gonna, create a lot of challenges.
Right. So let me ask you, though, let's go off of VR. Let's go back a bit and talk a little about interactive filmmaking.
Yeah.
I know that you have enabled a lot of really talented filmmakers to be doing both artistic and commercial work using Interlude or Treehouse, right? That's the name of the actual software. And so, for example, the Daniels making that beautiful film Possibilia, which won the FoST Prize last year. And is currently highlighted in the Sensory Stories exhibit that we curated at the Museum of the Moving Image. Talk to me, what do you see happening in terms of interactive film? Is that here to stay?
I hope so. I've put a lot of my life into it. Look, it's complicated to explain, but I think for me it's obvious right now, and I'm on the mission to convince the world it's obvious. We've had a few successful initiatives of other creators using our system, so we ourselves using our system. From Possibilia to the Bob Dylan and Coldplay and Led Zeppelin videos that were created using our authoring tools. Generally, a lot of the problems is that you need a different kind of thinking to do it correctly. And younger, or not really young in age, but people that have played a lot of computer games and have done those things get it quicker on how to use it. We're teaching a class at NYU at Tisch, for example, and you can see how students there get it right away. There's no a lot of need of explanation. And I usually know that somebody doesn't really get it if he's excited and he says something like, "Oh my God, so we can watch Titanic and decide if the Titanic should drown in the end or not, sink." And I'm like, no, it should sink. A storyteller decided that it should sink, and you shouldn't come in and always try to, impose it on a current story. It needs to be built as an interactive experience where the storyteller, instead of creating one curated ride, which is linear storytelling, he builds a playground, and he lets people play in that playground. And he needs to be prepared and okay with people falling down the slide and breaking their knee, like that. It's more dangerous. It has more risks, and it's a completely different craftsmanship or skill set than creating a linear story. But because it's containing all the possibilities and making sure you're giving enough power and control to the user, but also owning the environment.
But let me challenge you on that, Yoni, because really ultimately what it's still doing is linear storytelling. It's just multi-line linear storytelling, right? Because you're still filming each of these paths. You're just giving more path options, as opposed to, say, a gaming world where literally you can do anything in that world.
So I don't agree with it. First of all, you can't do anything in a gaming world. The gaming world has a 3D rendered engine usually, and I remember because I've actually played, I think, almost every role-playing game until 2006. There was like a game, for example, Fallout. It was a very famous game in the 90s that for the first time just let you decide to attack anyone. And it was a role-playing game, but it let you kill the head of your tribe and just like ruin the game. It was cool. You did it once, but then it ruined the game, so you loaded and you made sure you don't do that. There's like a lot of things about a lot of debate about interactive storytelling in general, about the fact that how interactive really is it? Is it just making you feel? Is it the the illusion of choice? But you can argue that about life as well. Life is your own linear story that is made by your choices. There might have been parallel choices or not, but it doesn't matter. In the end, as a storyteller, you want to contain those stories. And besides a few really sandbox games like Grand Theft Auto and things like that, that in the end, even Grand Theft Auto has one linear story that just lets you go around it in all kinds of different ways. When you combine film with it, it's true. I need to prepare the different, different
tracks.
You can call it tracks. I'm not looking at it exactly as tracks because I'll give you an example. In an interactive story we're making now, it's called storylet alchemy, like how you call that kind of interactive storytelling, but it really has trillions of different possibilities of how the story can happen because there's hidden parameters behind all the choices you make, and there's different reactions the main characters in the show can react, and there's an infinite amount of combinations depending on how you react to every scenario that happens inside the story that changes all those parameters, and in that creates actual billions of different consequences. Yes, and it's an art form, to make sure that we contain the story so you can't ruin it, but we give you the feeling of that you've led the story, that you've decided, you've role-played the story. And that's part of what's really important to me in that. And I saw somebody asked in Twitter, I think he asked it once we were talking still about VR, but it's true about everything, like what's the role of the storyteller or the director when you can choose the scene or change the story or anything like that. He has a much bigger role then, because you can look at it on the technical side as he needs to think about the different possibilities, but a real good interactive storyteller will not think about every different possibility that can happen. He will just build all the assets that together will create a coherent, immersive story that lets you feel like you're part of it and not just watching it passively. And in a lot of things, decisions that needs to be made is what's your role in the story? Are you God? Are you a fly on the wall? Are you a person that people talk to inside the story? Are you, and you need to understand the difference in that. And again, this is something that's why I like to compare it to games, because in games you can see already very interesting stories being told that way.
So you really are somebody who's at that nexus of the evolution or combining of narrative traditional storytelling forms with the world of gaming. I mean, they talk about the future of storytelling. One scenario is that there is this merging of those two worlds where you can have powerful and emotional sense of adventure or story, but it can be done in a way where the viewer becomes the hero and has agency and has control and has some sense of their own destiny, control over their own destiny in that story. Do you consider that? Is that what you think about, that you're sort of creating this new space between those two traditions?
I do. The problem is that the way that when I say games, I mean one thing, and when other people say games, they mean a completely different thing. And each one thinks about something else, because games, I really believe it's a form of art and always been. There was a game in '91 called Forgotten Realms Unlimited Adventures. It was a company called SSI releasing the engine that they used to create Dungeons and Dragons games to let anyone use them to create a game. That was one of my favorite things in the world, because I would make high school interactive drama, which wasn't a setting that people used to do, because gaming was always dragons or sci-fi, never something like that. But that feeling of being involved in something and in settings that are not just that, not just like the regular gaming, now it's more military and war and stuff like that, it's intriguing to me. And there are games that already are doing amazing steps that way, but because games are such a niche and such a very small contained industry, it's not going out to other storytellers. So I'm a little bit taking advantage of that, using what what they already know in a space that could benefit from it more than anyone else, I think. And creatively, it's extremely exciting because, people a lot of times say, I want to see what, Christopher Nolan has decided for me. And that's true. Me too. I don't want Christopher Nolan to create an interactive experience to me. But once you understand what could be a good interactive story, then you are excited about that, I think, in many more ways. When I was younger and games were that for me, I would say, why should I watch regular TV when I can, be part of it? Now, in the end, like other mediums, it doesn't really replace those. Sometimes I wanna lean back and just be told the story. But and last thing I say about that is that I remember when in the beginning somebody told me interactive storytelling, storytelling shouldn't be interactive, it should be linear. And I went and asked all kinds of people about it, and one religious Jew told me something I liked. He said that that's bullshit, and that before stories were recorded, before there were the ability, besides books, obviously, which were the linear way, when somebody would tell a story, it was always interactive. And he used the Haggadah, which is the thing that Jews tell in Passover. And it's that story about how Jews got out of Egypt, and it's a 2,000-year-old story that the Jewish people believe has been told, and that's why it's so important to keep on telling it. And every family tells it differently. It's actually interactive storytelling, because I remember my father used to tell it to us in a way that would engage us the most, which would get us excited, and he would use anything he could to make that story more interesting to us. He would change it because of who we were.
Right.
And I love that idea, because now there's a possibility, because of the seamlessness, to create a recorded kind of story that would change depending on who you are.
So, first of all, I couldn't agree more, right? And we talk a lot about that here at the Future of Storytelling, that the past of storytelling is what we're actually heading towards. In a way, we're going full circle, because originally, before the written word, before papyrus and the printed book, stories were these living interactions. They weren't linear and fixed, or what Socrates called dead language. They were live language. And I do believe that where technology is taking us is to letting these stories become living again, right? That we are participants in them. There's a dialogue, that they're filled with all sorts of subtle nuance that's human, like gesture and intonation and facial expressions and our own personalities and our own cultural contexts and all these things that make them current and meaningful to us, and ultimately more powerful and more persuasive. And so I do think that we're moving out of that phase of having stories be dead and fixed, right? For our lifetime, stories it was a DVD, it was a book, it was a CD, it was a physical thing, and you couldn't mess with it. You just had to consume it as is. But what you're creating is the beginning of this whole new world of stories that let us be part of that conversation or help co-create it. So it's incredibly exciting.
That's why I like you.
Exactly. That's why we do like each other. And then, of course, you know that I'm the only person in the world that you know who made an interactive Haggadah. I have an app that brings it to life. So another thing we share.
Yeah.
One thing that I love about what you've done with Interlude and some of the interactive music videos is that I also think that not only does it let people kind of create their own path and thus have some authorship, but it creates much greater engagement and much more of a desire to share. And I'd love for you to take a minute and talk about that. Like, what are some of the findings you've seen from some of the videos, including your own, right? Your original interactive music video.
Yeah, it's the how do you call it? The new generation that likes to feel they're part of something. Part of the thing is that when you do make your route inside this playground, you a lot of times feel the need or want to share that specific route, because people feel like, oh, that's me. I've created this, journey inside this story, and I want to share it. Again, something that's very common in gaming, where you share your character or what you did, or you want to know what you did as compared to what others did. Those kind of things help us craft features that are, specifically either for social and sharing, or for the feeling of achievement of users or younger audiences. Because the video is so seamless, it means the video goes on anyway, with you, without you, and people feel because of that the need to interact, and also the need to share those things with each other.
So what was it, like 2.5 times more likely to have read? I'm sorry, to have watched the video, whereas
yeah, the time spent on it, like the greatest one is that the Dylan video is not a short song; it's a 6.5-minute song. The average time spent on it is 18 minutes. The sharing is like 8 times because people felt like they were part of the creation. But just as a thing here, one of the funniest things that happened with the Dylan video, which is both happy and sad, is that there were tens of thousands of comments of teenagers, a lot of them saying things like, don't know this guy, he has a weird voice, but the song is catchy, when is the album coming out? And that's, there's Bob Dylan 2015, So it's a little sad, but it's happy that they are now actually interested. So,
right.
And that they are actually the song, they never thought the song is old,
Right.
It's a good thing.
That's very cool. So what's the next thing coming from Interlude? Is there anything else that we can look forward to seeing?
Yeah, there's a really cool thing coming out next week that I can't tell you what it is, but I'm going to send it to you before to make sure you send it to whoever is interested first.
Cool.
Really
well, you didn't hear it here first.
Exactly. Whatever it is, it never happened.
You don't know about it. Well, Yoni, it's just such a delight always to get to spend time with you. Thank you for spending time with us today. We will share this as broadly as we possibly can. I want to also encourage people who are following us to come see the Sensory Stories exhibit, where you can see Possibilia, which is a beautiful short film made by the Daniels that uses Interlude software. And really, I feel it's one of the best uses. Like, that story could never be told any other way than the way it was told using that technology. So to me, that's one of the great examples of interactive filmmaking, or great early examples of it. So thank you for help making that be something out in the world, and for all the innovative and creative work you do. So pleasure to see you, my friend.
Thank you so much.
We'll talk soon.